Panther family, what is up? I could not be more excited to have the guest today that I have. I have referred to him very frequently as the Georgia State sports guy. Any of my listeners probably know this guy already, but if you don't, you're going to get to know him a lot better today. My guest today is Mr. Ben Moore. And I could not be more excited to have him on. And you guys are going to love this interview. Ben is going to really dive into his deep knowledge of Georgia State sports and just tell you everything he knows. So, Ben, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself a little bit to our listeners that may not know you, I highly doubt anybody doesn't, but just kind of who you are, about maybe your family a little bit, your affiliation to Georgia State, and really your role in Georgia State sports, because I think that, is significant enough that it shouldn't be ignored. So.
No, I appreciate that, Michael, and thanks for having me on, man. Enjoy it. As we mentioned a little bit off air, I'm just excited to see the young people, kind of the new wave, the new era, picking up the baton, and really doing your thing on social media. So proud to see it continue to grow, and shout out to you and all that you're doing and building for the brand and keeping it rolling. But yeah, my name is Ben Moore. With 24/7 Sports, a Georgia State graduate, was on campus from 99 to 2003. Was actually a failed walk-on, basketball walk-on. Came to school for basketball, realized I was short and not very good, and got to hang around the program, and honestly just wanted to plug in there. Before obviously we had football, it was just kind of an idea. And my sophomore year, hooked up with a couple guys and helped launch the club football team. There was a club football team at Georgia State back in 2001, and got together with some great guys from a financial side of things, some guys that are that played, and one day I keep telling people it needs to be a book or 30 for 30, or maybe both. No, we'll see. We'll see how it's written down. But I've done some podcasts with kind of the original guys before, and I need to get them all and string them all together at some point and make sure everyone can listen to them. But
that'd be awesome.
Been with 24/7 for 6 years, covering basketball, football recruiting. Have covered both recruiting side of things for more than a decade. I've been very fortunate to know a lot of high school coaches in the area, and just scouting relationships all over the Southeast, really, and been fortunate to meet a lot of great people. And as we were just talking kind of a little bit off air, some great people within the program now, and who have played and come and gone, and just been extremely fortunate to continue to stay in touch with them. So it's a lot of fun, and again, get to cover sports, and been able to cover NCAA tournament games. I was there for RJ's shot, right courtside, when to quote RJ, his dad did the swan dive there on TV, immortalized forever in an NCAA moment. But I was there. Obviously bowl games as well, and continue to see the growth of the Georgia State football team, which is just beyond my wildest. I mean, again, I was there the first practices, and seeing when you didn't have a field, you didn't have any idea that any fan would show up at all, and to show up and the Georgia Dome, and obviously coming down now to Center Park Stadium, which is just truly amazing. So been around for a lot, been fortunate to see a lot, and grateful to join you and talk about anything we want to talk about.
Awesome, man. Awesome. Yeah, no, I'm right there with you. The growth of the football team, I think people, they love to hate on Georgia State football, but it's like, guys, we've been around for about 10 years, and we're already winning bowl game after bowl game after bowl game. Like, give us a little time. Give us a little time. In this recruiting hotbed here in the Southeast, especially Georgia too, I think it'll be no time before Georgia State is cracking that glass ceiling just like Cincinnati did. I mean, yeah, sure, that's 15 years down the road, but I mean, in the grand scheme of things, that's not a long time. So, yeah, cool. Yeah, no, I knew you had a great depth of knowledge, but I honestly didn't even know it went that deep. So I'm excited, even more excited to do this interview now. So, cool. So the first question that I start out with for most of my guests, since they're normally student athletes, is like, what's your favorite part about being a student athlete at Georgia State? So I'll switch it up for you a little bit. What is your favorite thing about being in the Panther family?
Honestly, just relationships. Truly, I've been fortunate to hire in roles in the past and do different things like that. Last, I think, 5 years running, I've been lucky enough to grab interns, that have been Georgia State students, and not only just grab them while they're students, kind of try to get them as much knowledge as possible, or sharpen their skills, but then see them graduate and move on, do things that they want to do. Have been super excited to see, and any little part that I can do, to grow, career wise, has been pretty rewarding, and we continue to do that. And then, because truly, that's how it was for me. I had a lot of people that saw the Georgia State connection there. They
Mhm.
kind of shepherded me on my way when I graduated, and I wanted to obviously pass that along. But just what I don't think people understand too is the power, kind of the Panther family, and so many alums and powerful people. And what I enjoy and what I tell people a lot is there are obviously shared experiences, but there's a grit, and there's a little bit different when you have people that have come through GSU too, where they understand kind of the work ethic. When I was there, it was the non-traditional student, folks that were a little bit older who were working as well as trying to get their degree. You talk to people who are my age and even a little bit younger, where they're working multiple jobs while finishing their degree, and you just kind of have a different level of passion for things, and appreciation of that degree. And I think that's the most fun part about it. And truly, there's folks that that are associated with the school, and obviously in athletics and things like that, they get that and appreciate that, and knowing the history of the school as well. So that's what it means to me, man. It's just the relationships of it, and again, the wonderful people we get to meet year in, year out.
Oh yeah. No, I've definitely noticed the same thing. I haven't been a part of the Panther family as long as you have, but when I go to games, like, shout out to the state of Atlanta guys, like when I met them, David Brown and all them, just like you said, the relationships that I built were very quickly, and it felt strong too. Like, it just feels like we understand that we're kind of the underdog, and we all stick together when it comes to that. So I love it. I love being a part of this Panther family, for sure. What do you to kind of branch off a little bit about the Panther family, what do you think is like the main thing misunderstood about the Panther family? Because for whatever reason, at least on Twitter, people act like we don't exist. So I don't really understand that. I understand that some of the crowds that show up to certain games, it can be a little warranted, but I think the passion is definitely there, and once we get consistent winning, you're gonna see that Panther family start showing up. So what do you think is the most misunderstood thing about us?
I think that there's nobody interested. I think that's that's what's been fascinating to me, is because the numbers continue to bear out the interest, obviously, in the city of Atlanta. I mean, you just wear Georgia State gear, any section of Metro Atlanta, and you're going to have people who evoke a reaction. Gas station, grocery store, things like that. And you have a general want, especially people that I've seen, that you want the team to do well. There's not really, basically, other than folks that are, kind of leaning Georgia Southern or Georgia Southern graduates, there's not people that are openly rooting against Georgia State that I've seen, at least.
Right.
I do remind people all the time, Twitter is kind of the worst of things. You have people who are hiding behind parody accounts and anonymous faces and things like that. But I think ultimately there's a lot of jealousy and bitterness of how quickly the program, went from non-existent to existent, and now obviously getting a whole lot of attention and accolades and things that way. It does bother some folks. When again, I came to Georgia State for basketball. I mean, basketball has been a dominant sport basically for the last decade, and very interested, obviously, to see if that's going to continue here in a couple nights. But it's one of those things. I think there are people that care about the program. There are people that follow the program. I'm sure folks in athletics can tell you, how many people are watching on ESPN Plus, listening on the radio, and doing things that way as well. So there are people that genuinely want this program to succeed and do big things. And They are disappointed when they lose and are excited when they win. We hear it most, and obviously in bowl games and, conference championship level, things in basketball and obviously making the NCAA tournament, you hear that response as well. And obviously even around the Southeast, the brand is starting to become more known, where people don't really, hey, what is that Panther head? Is that Pitt? Is that somebody else? No, they know it's Georgia State. So that's the exciting part to me. But I think a lot of folks, there still is a lot of angst going on. It's funny because I go and fortunate to talk to a lot of different people, a lot of different fan bases, even in the Sun Belt and around the Southeast. And, they're learning more and more, and they're realizing, oh, okay, so there is something tangible there. There's a lot of, misinformation and, but thankfully it's starting to get a little bit better. And, hopefully they also learn not to confuse us with our friends down South.
Yeah. We are the real GSU, definitely. I think, I think you even retweeted it too, that this last Camellia Bowl got 1.7 million viewers, and that was competing with NBA Christmas basketball. That was competing with the first half of the Packers Browns game, which are two huge, NFL teams. So I think numbers are going to start showing that whether people want to accept it or not, people are tuning in to Georgia State sports, specifically the football team, and actually starting to care and invest into the program. So I think that's invest emotionally and financially. So, that's going to be huge for us. So, yeah, cool. We will move on a little bit to kind of a little bit of a projection here for you. Cause I think, you more so than maybe anybody in the Panther family has probably the best idea of what the projection of Georgia State athletics could look like. So to your best estimate, what do you think Georgia State athletics is going to look like in 10 years and maybe even 20 years?
Yeah, I definitely think it's continuing to grow. I've been fortunate enough to meet President Blake and talk to him. And he is very much pro athletics. He's a guy that wants to continue to see the school grow at a rapid pace, as well as the athletic department, and continue to kind of grow the brand, not only just in the state of Georgia, but around the Southeast and nationally. And, I'm very interested to see what kind of his second year looks like. He, arrived at the end there kind of when conference realignment and everything was just absolutely going crazy. And don't blame him at all. And he's walking in not knowing, the intricacies of the school, what's going on in the athletic department. Now that things have semi-settled, how does, Georgia State pivot from here? How do you grow and continue to build, a fan base? It's been a struggle and a challenge with so many losses on the front end, building the program. And now obviously it's winning at a pretty, solid clip in the last, 4 of the last 5 years, and continuing to build and sustain that. We've seen the facility growth that I think you will continue to see. And that's really the next step and the next evolution of this program, is to basically show people that you're serious about athletics. You've done it on the academic side. You can't go pretty much anywhere. The campus, there is, distinct 4 points of campus now, where you couldn't say that before. And you have green space on campus. You have people, that live on campus now, which has always been something that said, oh, they're all commuter kids. There's nobody that lives downtown. You have that now. So you're continuing to see those steps being made. And I think you'll continue to see it within the athletic department. It's got to grow. It's got to, got to have more folks that graduate and give back. You need to obviously engage as well in the business community, continue to develop that, have business leaders. It was kind of wild. You mentioned Twitter a little bit earlier. Kat Cole is a Georgia State graduate, used to be in charge of, I think, branding for Cinnabon. She's got a new venture out, and I saw Coach reach out to her yesterday on Twitter because it's a athletic nutrition thing. Say, hey, Kat, you need to come down and check us out. We need a partnership. And she said, absolutely, let's do it. It's things like that where, again, the university has such an enormous alumni base. You have folks, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, that want to get involved. Now it's tapping into those powerful alums grabbing their businesses in there. And honestly, that's where you're really going to need to find at this level. You're going to need to find some folks that are willing to give emotionally, come in there. Hey, I want to put my stamp on this athletic program and really build it in a major way. And I think that's really the next step you're going to see is you need those big folks, men and women who are passionate about something and want to put their mark and their stamp on this program. And I think that's really up to, athletics as it stands right now to go identify those individuals who may or may not be kind of sitting on the sidelines right now to bring them back home and get them fired up and get them engaged.
Okay. Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. I think, one of the things that Georgia State likes to boast is that we have the largest student body in the entire state. So with that being said, we have a very large alumni base. So, definitely need to tap into that. And, I'm glad you mentioned it. Like, we're killing it academically. Like, I think we're second in undergrad in the entire nation. And then it's like second most innovative. And right below us is MIT when you look at that list. Like, I mean, if you're beating MIT in anything, like that's incredible. So, we've invested in the academics, and, I get that maybe, we want to be a school that isn't just known for football, but, I've seen it at other schools. Like I lived in Tuscaloosa when I was younger, like when I was like 10 years old, and that was before the Saban years. And Tuscaloosa looks like a completely different place now because, a high tide floats all boats. So, if we can get the football program, renovating a lot of money for us, I think that's going to be good for obviously the rest of the athletic department. So, cool. I'm glad that you mentioned this in your answer too, because it kind of segues into our next one. You mentioned conference realignment, and that was a huge topic over this last offseason and even during the season. With the new schools joining the Sun Belt and us getting a little bit bigger. But this question is a little more hypothetical one because I know before it happened, there were, different parts of the Panther family where these people wanted us to go to that conference. These people wanted us to go to that conference. So if hypothetically the Sun Belt folded tomorrow and everybody had to go to a new conference, which conference do you think would be the best fit for Georgia State, and why do you think that?
Well, I've been saying for a while that the old way, the American with downtown rural, or urban institutions is away from the rural institutions. I think that's the difficult part ultimately with the Sun Belt now is you have a lot of lot of universities in rural parts of their state. Georgia State's not that, and it's been it's smack downtown. And it kind of basically revitalized that downtown area. There's economic studies that show the impact that has on the city of Atlanta. And it's kind of ingrained in the fiber of the city of Atlanta there. So, you really want to find somewhere where you're going to be with like programs that way. You mentioned Cincinnati a little bit earlier, Cincinnati or Houston, UCF, things like that. There's a lot of similarities in that. So you want to kind of follow that model, and exist within the city itself and be with like kind of peer institutions from that standpoint. So if you had kind of your pick that way, I mean, that's an ideal situation. You're not going to be with a legacy, 150-year-old, athletic program, as you mentioned in Alabama. That doesn't really make sense. Some of these programs that I mentioned a little bit earlier are not that much older than a Georgia State. My uncle helped start the football program, for example, at South Florida, and continue to see their progression. And they've obviously had a few rough years in a row down in Tampa, but Georgia State not too long ago again was in the same conference as the UCF, and then there was kind of a split there. They went obviously put a ton of resources into their athletic department and built that. But from an academic and school point of view, there's a lot of satellite campuses as well with UCF and have a very, very similar model. But that ideally would be where you'd want to, if you had to hand pick basically and say, hey, yeah, you'd want to be with the Houston, Cincinnati, UCF, something of that nature.
Okay. Yeah, no, I totally agree. The difference between Georgia State and the rest of the teams in the Sun Belt is kind of stark. So at least when it comes to where the schools are, so yeah, totally agree on that. Cool. Cool. So we'll go a little back in time here for the next couple questions. And you don't have to date yourself on any of these if you don't want to, but you definitely can. So the first one is definitely, what is your just all-time favorite Georgia State sports memory?
I mentioned a little bit earlier. Yeah, it was. I think game one for football is definitely that right there. I joke all the time. I have a 12-year-old, so she is as old as the football program. So I try to explain that to her, that she's, like there isn't 12 generations of fans. There's
right.
barely one. But no, coming, kind of over that hill and pulling into the Georgia Dome, having no idea how many people or if anybody was going to show up at all. Mm-hmm. That definitely was incredible to have over 30,000. And as I remind people all the time, the Dome was completely overwhelmed. The ticket takers were overwhelmed. If you talk to anybody from the athletic side of things, they had an anticipation of how many people were going to be there, and more than double showed up. So at some point you had people who were being turned away, who just, kind of went away and listened to the game. Wasn't on TV there against in game one against Shorter, but just overwhelmingly seeing the entire lower bowl of the Dome filled up, then seeing basically the students flood basically the club level there. Just an incredible visual, and to have a blowout win and just kind of launch this program onto the scene and outdraw the Braves that night. Was pretty incredible, and really just announced, with, hey, we're here. This is serious. There's a lot of people when this was kicked around in 2008, the feasibility study happened, things like that, to say, hey, it'll never work. It's not going to, there's nobody that cares about anything at Georgia State. They're not going to show up to games. And that really was a resounding, loud thump saying, hey, we're going to be here. And just having, that whole season to finish, basically in Bryant-Denny Stadium was incredible. But having that first winning season that season, and then just seeing those fans. But no, that game one was incredible, because you had people of every age. You had students that were in school now. You had older alums that up and had no idea that this was even possible. And having people come out there and led by just an incredible guy in Bill Curry. Just tremendous, and obviously his roots within the city of Atlanta and what Georgia State meant to him and his family. I mean, talking to him and his wife. I mean, she's a Georgia State alum and was allowed to basically raise their family as well as go to school and kind of build their household too. So he has often said how much she means to him. So it was just truly incredible. But no, there's been a lot of great moments, but that definitely is right up there at the top.
Awesome. Yeah, no, I wish I could have been there for that, man. I wish I could have. It's funny you mentioned the older Georgia State fan. Like, I love when you'll see him at the football games now. Like, if we mentioned Alabama, if you see an old man in an Alabama game like that, you're like, oh, I bet he's seen, hundreds of games and all that. And you see a Georgia State, older fan, and you're like, man, when he was here, he probably thought we would never have a football team. So I just think that's awesome every time I see him. And they'll be into the game too, man. They'll be the ones cheering the loudest. So those older alumni, they understand the importance of Georgia State having a football team. So this new, like you said, this new generation of people, they'll get a little used to Georgia State actually winning football games and things like that, and it'll be great. So again, to kind of go back in time a little bit, who is your all-time favorite Georgia State student athlete or coach? Or coach?
That's tough. We talked about a little bit off the air. I'm gonna make some people mad. Get some texts and some DMs after they see this. There's a lot. There's a long list of my favorites, to be honest. I've got guys like Penny Hart, guys obviously like RJ Hunter, was just incredible after he hit the biggest shot of his life in the NCAA tournament. Had a chance to catch up with him walking back to the locker room, and he's asking me about my family and my wife, and just beyond it, incredible people like Kevin Ware, that what he's gone through, and my dad is the public address announcer for basketball, and he came and shook Kevin Ware's hand, and I just had no idea. And I looked at him, I said, do you have any idea who that is? And he was like, yeah, he's one of our players. And I was like, no, you let me catch you up. But seeing, guys like Shannon Sullivan, who, didn't have any offers at all coming out of high school, except for Georgia State, guys that went to camps and earned a scholarship and played every single position. Seeing him, I think he only won 2 or 3 games senior year, and just incredible young man and a tremendous student athlete, academic All-American, tremendous family, now obviously doing great things with the Green Bay Packers, and one of the best, corners, every single year, statistically. You look at Pro Football Focus and everything like that. He's always up there and just, being impressive. But, I've had guys that, guys like James Fields, who most Panther fans won't pay attention to much. He was here for, from Savannah, a kid that could have gone down and probably played at Georgia Southern or other places. Chose to come to Atlanta, and just kind of a glue guy early, especially in Ron Hunter's days here. Kind of one of those defensive guys like Ryan Green, who are continuing to do well. I love guys that, maybe weren't the, biggest or baddest recruits, right. But, had obviously careers and now obviously doing big things outside of athletics as well and continuing to grow. And I've just, again, dozens and dozens of names that fly by, that have been legends. And then you've had guys that, you may, unless you were super hardcore and paid attention to it, or you may have forgotten guys.
Right.
That's the most fun for me. And knowing guys, and always getting the arguments as well from the old school basketball teams and things like that, lefty days in the 99 and 2000s, could they beat the DeMarcus Simons 100 days? And I told him, I said, man, I wish we had a way to get you guys in your prime to come back. Cause you always have, there's always a good argument, a good battle, who would guard who and who would stop who. But no, there's been a lot of great people. I can't single out just one, because ultimately it's like picking your favorite kid. You love them all. You may like them differently on the day, but I can't pick out just one, man.
Okay. No. I respect it. And I'm sure everybody listening are like, good job, Ben. Good. But yeah, no, that's awesome. I can't even imagine some of the relationships you built with these guys. They just seem like incredible dudes. Like you spoke about Chandon, like he just, he was at the spring game this last year. And, I was like, Chandon, he came up and, dapped me up and just seemed like just such a nice guy. And just, I think that's something I've noticed about, me interviewing the student athletes now and just seeing how some of the older guys conduct themselves, whether that's through interviews or just on social media in general. I've just noticed that Georgia State student athletes are just, very high character people. And I've grown to very, very much love that. So couldn't enjoy that more. And I don't blame you for not picking someone. Cool. So we will now move into a couple of would you rathers, because I think this first one, I'm kind of excited to hear your answer on this one. So first one, would you rather the football team win a conference championship in the Sun Belt, or would you rather the men's basketball team make it to the Sweet 16?
Ooh. Oh, that's tough. I'm a basketball guy first, man, so I'm going to lean that way.
Okay.
Is a big statement. Would love to see football grab a championship soon enough, but Sweet 16, that second weekend is really the pinnacle. And it's something that we haven't done yet. And I think that's the next step, in the program's evolution, and especially with the super seniors back. I think that would be a huge step, whether it happens this season or in the future. But yeah, I'll lean that way just ever so slightly.
Okay. I'm actually going to have to agree with you, because that Sweet 16, like conference championship is a big deal, especially for a team like Georgia State, but Sweet 16, that's huge. There's not many, non-Power 5 schools that can say they've, gone to those. So yeah, and I'm sure that banner would look very beautiful in that new arena. So, and I will comment again on the super seniors, as you said. this team, it looks a little rocky right now, but I know if they get it together and can make a deep run, especially in the Sun Belt tournament, this team's got some potential, so I'm excited to see what happens, especially tomorrow night. Any listeners, if you can make it to the game on Thursday, definitely make it out there. It's gonna be a big one, conference opener, and it may be the only one we play at this rate. So yeah. So next, would you rather? This one is kind of a little more Twitter based because it's just something I've noticed on Twitter here over the last year or so. Would you rather Southern remain our biggest rival, or would you rather us move on to a little bit bigger and better things and kind of make Tech our biggest rival? Because at least on the social media aspect of it, because this whole Southern doesn't call us a rivalry and all that, I think it's a load of crap. And, it's whatever. But the Tech, like I noticed, like I went to the Tech basketball game and I didn't realize how many Georgia Tech people didn't like us. So yeah, that was, just kind of interesting. So I guess the real question is, who would you rather be like our biggest rival at the end of the day? Because rivalries are one of the best parts about sports. So, that's, always a big thing.
Yeah, no, I definitely think Southern has a purpose, and we serve that purpose for them as well. Don't get it twisted. And the people that can kind of talk down and don't believe it exists. You talked about some of those older fans and older folks. I've talked to people who played basketball at Georgia State in the 60s and the 70s, and they will tell you, I mean, that it was contentious then. They hate losing to those guys. In anything, I think it's done, major in terms of grabbing attention. Anytime, State beats Southern in anything, you get a reaction. And that's what I have always told people. If it wasn't a rivalry, you wouldn't have a reaction, right? You'd say, all right, just lost, it's another game, no big deal. You get a reaction. You get players, and you get the games that are a lot more heated, a lot more energetic. And, we've seen it, certainly in football and basketball and baseball, where the crowds, respond on both sides. And I think that's a great thing. Tech is interesting because, there's a lot of relationship. If you go back and look at the history between Georgia State and Georgia Tech, you've had a lot of folks who, may have gone to undergrad here and gone and got their master's at Tech, vice versa. You have, go and get an undergrad there and get a master's degree at Georgia State. There's almost like a cousin relationship going on there. So we really haven't been, super competitive. You don't play a ton in sports. I'm very interested to see what happens when the football series, kicks off here in a couple of years with the home and home, and seeing how the reaction is going to be there. It's kind of difficult because Tech has had traditional rivals, right? You had, rivals that have, lasted decades and things like that. Obviously, Georgia is a rival on paper with them. They like to beat them whenever they can, but seen, last, I think 50 or so meetings, it's really not even been close. And it's, there is some tangible fear there as well within the Tech fan base, especially in the older fan base, when they struggle in sports, that we may have the potential to kind of catch up,
right,
be on their same level at some point, and grab some interest there as well. But what I've enjoyed is you talk to folks who kind of, we call them the BFers and the AFers. You had before football, you had people who were sympathetic to Tech. I've talked to people like Mac Williams, who was old school guy, been around Georgia State literally for 5-6 decades. And he used to sell popcorn and Cokes at Bobby Dodd Stadium for football. So he still pays attention, to what's going on over there on North Avenue. But obviously his, heart, and he roots for Georgia State and wants to beat him, and always hits me up, and he wants to know who we're recruiting and who we're beating out for him. But no, I mean, I definitely think Southern has value, and it has really since the 60s when they started playing. And what the fun part about it, you get the back and forth, obviously, who's GSU, who was at first,
right,
back and forth that way. And as I like to remind people, Grambling State was even a university before Georgia Southern's was. They're kind of third in line there, but they just, they can cut it into the shrubbery. So obviously it must be.
That's what they always say, man. It's at the front. It's at the front.
We put it on a shirt, so it must be true. And I was like, okay, well, you can do that like on a coffee mug too. It doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
Ultimately, what the fun part back and forth, that I think ultimately their new athletic director just kind of made it that much worse when he jumped out of the rivalry series, realizing that it was going to be a very long time before that trophy was going to head down to Statesboro. Just the way things were set up, I think there obviously is something there. I mean, wrote about it back in 2014, talking specifically about how both programs kind of needed each other to kind of build this contentiousness, because as you mentioned,
right.
best part about sports, about college sports, it's your school versus mine, and continuing to build that rivalry and animosity, and you have that game circled every single year, and you pay attention a little bit closer. And as I mentioned a little earlier, I mean, it hurts a little bit more when you lose and your rival gets a hold over your head for another year. So I think it is definitely Southern. Again, it's something that I think will continue to evolve, and they look. We laugh at them when they're down. They laugh at us when we're down. They kind of continue to kick the crap out of them. And what's funny too is the coaches come and coaches go, but they're reminded. They know how big that game is. I talked to Rob Lanier about that before. I mean, he kind of realized, hey, it's not just another game against that, and understanding that as well. And kids that are from Georgia, they understand the importance of it as well.
Oh yeah, no, it's I think for Georgia Southern, and whether it's the student athletes themselves or the fans to not consider a rivalry, when they were here at Center Park a couple years ago, Ben, when they would gain 3 yards, that opposing crowd would just be losing it. And I was like, yeah, it's definitely not a rivalry, man. You guys aren't invested in this at all. You guys don't care at all. So yeah, no, they're fooling themselves when they say that. So I'd have to agree with you on that one as well. So I got a few more questions here for you, and then we'll wrap everything up here. So it's no secret, it's definitely things that we've kind of already talked about throughout the interview, that Georgia State's athletic department just, is growing, and that, some people, whether it's, in jest or in actual seriousness, don't take it very serious at times, or don't view it as very legitimate in ways. Do you think the new basketball arena, the potential baseball and softball parks that, once they get the funding and get built, they're gonna be incredible? Like the artist renditions of what they're supposed to look like look incredible. And the recent successes of the football team and making some adjustments to Center Park Stadium and things like that will add a little more legitimacy to the athletic program nationally, and honestly more specifically locally, because for whatever reason, I have noticed that is something that people of opposing fan bases are just, think that is something that Georgia State is, for lack of a better term, pathetic with. And I'm like, I don't see where that plays that big of a role, but if that's what makes you legitimate, then hey, I guess that's what makes you legitimate. So do you feel like getting these new arenas and ballparks and, getting renovations and things like that, is that going to add legitimacy to the athletic department that is at this point, needed?
Yeah, there's no doubt. And I think ultimately, we talked about a little bit with the rivalry side of things. You have a program like Georgia Southern's won multiple national championships at the FCS level. App State's won multiple championships. They've been the gold standard in the Sun Belt. You do have generations of fans. Again, you don't have that here. Men's basketball has gone kind of through their renaissance in the last 10, 11 years. Before that, I believe it was 7 straight seasons of losing. It's very difficult to support something when you're not winning. It's just that simple. And I've tried to explain folks, even from outside this area, there's really 3 factors to get the city of Atlanta's attention. Number one, you got to win at a super high level, and you got to win at home as well. And you're starting to see that with football. Obviously, men's basketball has done a very good job there, and it will need to translate over to the Convocation Center as well. You're going to need to defend that home court like the sports arena in that way. Number 2, you're going to need an impressive or stylistically a fun style of play, right? You're going to need something basically. It's one of the things that people complained about at Tech, right? They didn't like the triple option. It was boring, and it was this and it was that. Well, then guess what? You take it away, and 3 years later, they have 9 wins. You know what? Losing sucks, and it kills fan support. And they're looking at it and going, all right, this is no fun either. So you got to win. You got to have a style of play. And ultimately, if you have a star, I tell people too, being an Atlanta Falcon fan and being around the Falcons when Michael Vick was there, just the electricity that drew, push it down kind of to our level here. I mean, RJ Hunter was that guy. He was a star. You had NBA scouts, by the dozen basically in the crowd every single night. And, watching him play, watching an all-timer play, DeMarcus Simons was a star here, watching him and seeing him just to be able to explode any given night. I think you need that ability. We've had some on the football side of things. Albert Wilson from early, I tell people he was a video game, and just the way, unfortunately, the stats work when Georgia State was transitioning from, FCS independent to into the Colonial and then basically going to FBS. If his stats would have counted, he would have been top 30 all time in the history of college football in all-purpose yards. He was a video game. You threw it up and he would score. That was it. And he was the offense, special teams, and everything. So you need those three factors to continue to build, and it will come. I believe you'll have people that are bought in. You'll have students who graduate and want to come back and say, hey, you know what, we're winning. That was the one thing that I really have tried to challenge some of the younger fans to say, hey, why aren't you coming? And so we don't win at home. All right. Well, the last 3 seasons, football is 12-5 at Center Parcs. And yes, there have been some blowouts, and that certainly kind of, puts a damper on some support there. But folks that have come back and have withered through that, they've seen a winning product at home, and you've have a fun atmosphere. I think it's the next step now. We'll see that in, this fall coming up, where you have big name opponents coming in. University of North Carolina will come in for the first time. You got Georgia Southern coming. You got Coastal coming. These are name opponents now, obviously, that matter in the future. You've also got, other Power 5 programs coming in. We mentioned Georgia Tech a little bit earlier. There's other, potential for other non-conferences. Basketball is going to have the same thing, where you're going to have people where the venue is bigger and better. You're going to have better teams come in there. And I think that's the next level, is not only bringing them in there, but then of course beating them and getting those marked name wins and build. And again, having folks that want to be proud of something. I mean, that's the thing that I've continued to, around the city of Atlanta, even around the state, is, they want to be proud about this program. They want to see, it do great things. There are just a lot of people that are, I believe, just sitting on the sidelines kind of waiting. And I think, just they don't want to put themselves out there, or even people that I've talked to that were, season ticket holders in 2010, 2011. And then once the program kind of slid down and the losses started piling up, they stood back and said, hey, I'm going to pay attention from afar or do other things. So I think you got to bring those people back, and just a high level of success has to continue to do that. And also the outreach has got to continue and bring those folks back. And as hard as it is, why, I try to set a challenge out every single year, every home game, try to bring somebody that hasn't been, that hasn't been before, bringing folks to the stadium, because overwhelmingly it's, wow, I can't believe this, or, hey, it's going to look like a baseball stadium, it's going to look like this, going to look like that. And, again, overwhelmingly it's positive. And that's what all of us, I think, is a responsibility, folks that are passionate about this program, to bring people back.
Definitely. Yeah, no, I plan on doing, just like the state of Atlanta guys, hosting some tailgates, and doing whatever I can to contribute to, like I have plenty of buddies that graduated, a little bit before I did or when I did, and it's, I'm not going to name names on them, but they'll be wearing Georgia gear. You know what I mean? It's like, guys, come on, like we can support our team, we can support our school. And, obviously it's just like any other sport on any level, winning helps with that. I wish we could be one of those schools that doesn't matter what the win-loss record is. We're, got a ton of support, but, that's not what a 10-year-old football program is going to, get. And it's around the corner. I know it's not far away, because people in this area of the country love college football. And I think just Georgia State winning more, creating more of a brand, creating more of a name, those people that maybe are Georgia State alumni but cheer for Alabama or Auburn or, Georgia or whatever, now they start rocking Georgia State gear and they start going to the games and things like that. So, yeah, I know it's coming soon. Cool. Well, Ben, I can't thank you enough. I'm going to ask you one more question here, and it's normally the same question that I end for everybody, but I'll switch it up again a little bit for you since you're not a student athlete. What is the one thing about Georgia State sports that you would want my listeners to know about, whether these listeners are in the Panther family or there's somebody from another fan base listening, maybe even potential recruits? What's the one thing that you want them to know about Georgia State sports?
Yeah, I think the people that are associated with the programs you mentioned a little bit earlier, I think we've done extremely well from a student athlete alumni. You have good representation of the school, of the state. You talk to the student athletes now and the coaches. They want to engage with folks. I think that's the opportunity that you don't have at other bigger schools potentially, where you're not going to meet folks. You have an opportunity to meet the coaches, meet the players. They're out there. They're doing positive things in the community. They represent their family well. They represent Georgia State well. I think it's just, again, they're great representatives of us as GSU people. I think you have people, on many different sports that are rootable. And I think that's really what you want, right? You want somebody that say, hey, you know what, that's my guy, that's my gal. That's, teams that way. And no matter, the win losses and things like that, I think that's what you can be proud about, ultimately, the people that are representing you and doing things out there. And honestly, they need support. They need resources. They need folks to come to games. I mean, I can't tell you how many different sports and how many different people will tell you, hey, look, we just need people to show up. We need people to listen, to connect, things that way, because it does matter. And also, we talk obviously about football and basketball. I challenge people all the time too. Go out and see a baseball game. Go out and see a softball match. Softball game. Go see a soccer match. Go out and see. It's about to jump here in the spring semester. Go and see a beach volleyball match. There's only a few. But go see Beth Van Fleet's crew. If you've never ever seen beach volleyball, that's a fantastic, again, for a spectator, it moves very, very quickly. It is a very good, one of the top programs in the nation. Beth Van Fleet is built there. I actually went to college with her at Georgia State when she was playing on the court volleyball side of things. So that's a sport that is relatively new on the scene at NCAA's as well. And it's something that has kind of continued to grow and be popular. And they recruit nationally as well there. But try to go out and make a mark, say, hey, you know what? I haven't been to an event there. I haven't gone out to, the baseball field before, or, soccer or softball, different things like that. And support those student athletes too, because they're not getting a lot of support. You have family and friends a lot of times at those crowds, for most games, most matches and things like that. But definitely would encourage folks to go out there and support it. They deserve it. And, maybe you might find a connection there. And I have two girls in my house, so I get to go and show them things that they can play. They want to go out to women's basketball. They want to go to soccer. They want to go see softball and different things like that. So it is important to show folks there. If you have a neighbor or family member, cousin, niece, nephew, bring them out to games. It does matter, because as I tell people constantly, my kids are Panther family through and through. They know, that's what they support. What clothing basically litters the floor, pretty much. So but no, that's what I would definitely say and issue a challenge for sure.
Okay, yeah, no, challenge accepted on my end. I'm going to challenge the rest of the Panther family too. I interviewed Gunther Rankenberg on my last episode, and he's the starting keeper. And I said it on that episode, and I'll say it again. Like these guys, like, more than deserve our support. And the ladies with women's soccer or the women's basketball team or softball team. Her name is slipping to me, but we had one softball player make SportsCenter top 10 this last summer when she made that diving catch. So no, these are excuse my French, but these are some badass athletes. So they deserve our support. So challenge accepted on my end. I'm definitely going to be going to every game that I can. I live about 10 minutes from campus, so I know the baseball field's a little bit further away, but everything else is right down the road from me. So I'll be going to everything, especially men's basketball game tomorrow night. I saw that the women's got canceled, so hopefully that'll be the last one that gets canceled. But who knows with COVID and sports these days. But we will wrap it up there. Ben, I cannot thank you enough for joining me. It was beyond an honor to have you on. I felt like I learned more about Georgia State sports in the last hour than I have in, my entire life. So I loved having you on. If I'd love to have you on as a guest, months down the road, maybe during like spring practice or something, and talk about what the update is on Georgia State sports and what have you. But I cannot thank you enough, man. Everybody have a good night that's listening. Thank you guys for the support, and be looking out for the next episode that'll be coming out soon. And thank you again, Ben.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Michael. Appreciate it. We'll definitely do it again.
Awesome. Sounds good.